field of deceit. Telling the truth is a revolutionary act. It's the David Knight Show.
As the clock strikes 13, it's Tuesday, the 6th of May, year of our Lord 2026. Well, today we're going to take a look at, is it a new war? Is there going to be soon a one-page agreement to end? I guess Trump has already said that the old war ended. They rebranded it as Project Freedom. But Operation Epstein Fury, he said, was finished. And then as things began to escalate on Monday, lo and behold, Trump is, there's leaks saying that they've got a new memo of understanding. We're going to take a look at that, and we're going to take a look at some other recent memos of understanding between the Trump administration and other countries. Is it worth the paper that it's written on? Meanwhile, as we look at all this stuff, what are they claiming they're going to get out of it? It's interesting to remember that it was the U.S. and Israel that gave Iran their nuclear program. And now we have a massive new war, a propaganda war being conducted by the Israeli ministry against Americans. Unbelievable, the astronomical amount of money that they're going to spend, primarily focused on evangelical Christians through the wolves in charge of the sheep. Well, let's begin with the news. And Fauci, it appears, continues to dodge the bullet. People are surprised. You had Rand Paul, as well as some other people, pushing the Trump administration. Come on, we're reaching the end of the statute of limitations for Anthony Fauci and the harm and the lies and the crimes that he committed 6 years ago. We need to do something about this. Well, maybe they didn't notice that one of Trump's, perhaps his final act as president, was to give a medal. I call it a medal. It's a commendation to Trump to Fauci for Operation Warp Speed. And of course, one of the final things that Biden did was to give him legal immunity. So, these guys love him. Who is expecting that anything's going to be done to this guy? It really is naive, as a matter of fact. One person says the Department of Justice does not plan to arrest Fauci. Breaking news. Is that breaking news to this person? This is somebody called The General, and is expected to let the statute of limitations for lying to Congress expire. Well, I don't know. What's the statute of limitations for fraud and murder and for corruption? By the way, again, I would like to just see an answer as to how this guy got paid double what he was supposed to be paid. The salary cap for people who are in the bureaucracy, and it was true of his boss and his boss's boss, the salary is capped at the level of the vice president. Only the president gets over $400,000. Everybody else is capped at about $200,000. Fauci was getting more than the president. How did that happen? If he's able to collect more than the president, if he's able to do that for a very long time, if he's able to collect a massive pension, what made anybody think that he was going to get prosecuted off of this? But let's just remember why he should be.
You were going to have schools, universities, and colleges are going to say, you want to come to this college, buddy? You're going to get vaccinated. Lady, you're going to get vaccinated. Yeah. Big corporations like Amazon and Facebook and all of those others are going to say, you want to work for us, you get vaccinated. And it's been proven
fascism.
When you make it difficult for people in their lives, they lose their ideological bullshit and they get vaccinated.
Thank you.
Yeah, we can bring them to their knees.
All objections to COVID vaccinations, ideological bullshit, Dr. Fauci?
No, they're not, and that's not what I was referring to.
Well, that's exactly what you meant when you said making it hard for people to live without getting a vaccination. You affected people's ability to work, travel, be educated, to actually flourish in American society, to self-determine, as we're all given God-given rights. Shame on you.
Well, I guess that showed him. We don't need to throw him in jail. We don't need to give him the end of the rope. No, none of that stuff is necessary for Fauci. He got a real tongue lashing when he was there in Congress, and he's collecting his massive pension, and who knows what else he's collecting under the table. This is a guy who for decades was there practicing dark winter, working with the intelligence agencies, the military, the Pentagon, to poison not only Americans, but the entire world. Mr. Bioweapon, our American Joseph Mengele. Yeah, that's who this guy really is. Rand Paul said the DOJ has just 1 week left to charge Fauci for the worst cover-up in modern medical history. They're not even asking the right questions. They're not even focused on the right thing. What they're saying is, oh, well, he's involved in these experiments in China. That created some real pandemic, some real virus. And look at this. He needs to answer these questions. Not only that, said Rand Paul, Mr. Fauci, you are making people vaccine hesitant. Perhaps his greatest crime, right? The guy who put through the 1986 act that gave them legal immunity if they harmed children. Yeah, you talk about the Trump Epstein people. How about the Fauci pharmaceutical people who inject kids, kill and cripple them at early ages, and then give themselves legal immunity for that while they become billionaires? I am just so disgusted with this whole thing. And I'm disgusted with the American people who seem to be completely blind and clueless about this, misled not only by the media, the mainstream media, but also misled by people in the Republican Party. People like Rand Paul. What he did was a misdirection. And by the way, if you think that gain of function is what went wrong, why don't you stop it? You don't stop that. You don't stop Fauci. You don't stop any of this stuff. It's just like Trey Gowdy and his Benghazi hearings. They just grandstand about this stuff and absolutely do nothing. So he lied to Congress about funding gain of function, did he, Rand? Well, you're lying to people about that as well. It's time we get some people who are real. But don't look at the election results yesterday. We got just the opposite of that. Got another big pharma bro. The guy who's right there with J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance made a big show of showing up to vote for Vivek Ramaswamy, the Vivek the Snake, as Shiva Ayyadurai calls him. And made a big show of voting for him, and he had a big win in Ohio. He won every single county. So much for any discernment of Republican voters or so-called conservatives. They don't understand at all what's going on. These two guys making a fortune, J.D. Vance and Vivek the Snake, making a fortune over self-amplifying mRNA. Yeah, let's make the bioweapon self-amplifying. Yeah, it was never about gain of function. It was never about Wuhan stuff. It was always about their bioweapon. How's that for hiding in plain sight? Yeah, we got a pandemic, and it was pushed by Fauci. He was the typhoid Mary of this pandemic. He and Trump creating the vaccine or manufacturing the vaccine and so-called vaccine in massive quantities and pushing on people. That was the pandemic. That was the killer. Knew it from the very beginning. Anyway, the COVID playbook returns, however. This is somebody writing from New Zealand, Chris McIntosh. And he lives in New Zealand. He's looking at the things that are being put in place for rationing energy, fuel, electricity, and all the rest of this stuff. And he's like, oh, wait a minute. This is looking just like the COVID playbook. And folks, it was a playbook. It was a game. They gamed all of this stuff and practiced it for years, decades, actually. So government reveals details of a fuel crisis rationing plan and who will be prioritized. This tells us everything, really, about the elites and their agenda. As he pointed out, this looks exactly like the kind of COVID plans were put in by Jacinda Ardern, then I guess the title is Prime Minister or whatever, the Grand Poobah of New Zealand. The uncomfortable parallels between the COVID response and the proposed fuel rationing plan cannot be ignored. On the surface, the plan they call the plan, the fuel response plan, looks more restrained than COVID. It's incremental. It differs to markets in the early phases, and it explicitly frames escalation as a last resort. Officials are at pains to say that phases 3 and 4 are unlikely. But then again, we saw the same BS with the COVID scam. This is deliberate positioning. The architecture of this plan is strikingly familiar, and so are the architects. How is it that Donald Trump, who ushered this in, it was part to accelerate the globalist moving their Overton window in so many different ways, from universal basic income to locking us in place, like a 15-minute city and so forth. Look at how he forwarded that, and look at how he has forwarded all of this in terms of destroying the economy and the Great Reset. Everything Trump has done since he took office the second time, and everything they did in the last year of his first administration, has all been focused on destroying the global economy, destroying the middle class, and at the same time, a massive transfer of wealth and power to the elites. Everything that he has done. So there are a lot of structural parallels. There's escalating powers are being dressed as prudent planning. COVID began with 2 weeks to flatten the curve, right? The fuel plan begins with, well, let's just monitor and inform people. The framework is designed to normalize the existence of extraordinary powers before they are used. That's his point. This is, here we got a plan, and we're not really planning on using this. But if things get really bad, here's what it's going to look like. We take all the energy, and you get what's left over, if there's any left over. That's the bottom line on all this. He said phases 3 and 4, rationing, purchasing limits, directed distribution, those are legally and politically pre-legitimized by being included in a published plan. The plan doesn't just prepare for a crisis, it prepares the public to accept an intervention that they haven't yet been asked about. Most notably, there is no consultation mechanism. No, you'll do what we say and you'll be happy to do that, right? He says, sadly, I suspect the sheep will fall for it yet again. Ministerial direction is the operative mechanism. The Fuel Security Ministerial Oversight Group, they created this thing, right? Decides when to move between the phases. They'll be guided by 6 criteria, none of which are automatic triggers. Ministers will, quote, consider a broad range of information and then assess the full picture. So there's no objective standards to this. This is identical, he says, to what they had with the COVID alert level system, where you had Jacinda Ardern effectively held unchecked discretion over the country's movement. The criteria provide political cover, not genuine constraint. It is a smokescreen. And so is this. He said that it is nothing other than consultation theater. Phases 3 and 4 are labeled under consultation, but consultation with whom? Consultation on what timeline? And with what veto power? That's not said. And so bottom line is, he points out this is a mechanism to obliterate the middle class. He said, remember the COVID measures? The middle class got raped. Most still don't even know it. They just realize that they are poorer than they ever were before. And they have less freedom as well. The priority bands tell you everything. He said, let's go through this. There's 5 priority bands. First one, Band A, that is government, defense, courts, corrections, prisons, right? Corrections, hospitals. The state itself is fully protected, so they get number 1 priority, the state does. Then band number B. This is going to be large logistics operators, supermarkets, supply chains, all the people who got a pass on lockdown from Trump, right? Isn't it funny how New Zealand has got the same plan that Trump and all the other countries did back in COVID? Anyway, these are not the small businesses. These are large corporations with existing government relationships. Keep in mind that Air New Zealand was partially nationalized during COVID. It has lost money every year since then. No surprise about that, but it is also entirely ignored that they have continued to lose money after being nationalized. Then you get to Band C, which is public transportation, essential infrastructure, which, by the way, comes after the big corporations, doesn't it? Isn't that interesting? So you have government, you have big corporations, then you get to public infrastructure. Then on the fourth level, assuming there's anything left, there you have these small businesses, all other commercial and business fuel uses. This is where the small business owner, the tradesman, the independent contractor, this is where they are fourth in line behind the state, behind the preferred corporations. And then you have the fifth one, which is the ordinary citizen, dead last on energy, if there's any left over. This is their priority, folks. They just spell it out for you. The middle class, small business owners, independent operators, tradespeople, rural producers outside of the, quote, most critical periods, get what's left after the state and its large corporate partners have filled their stomachs and their wallets. This is not an accident of design. It is the design. We saw this happening with COVID. Wall Street's going to be taken care of. Main Street's going to be raped. That was Trump who did that. These people are doing it again. And so all they care about is continuity of government. Let's just call it what it is, continuity of power and wealth. That's what these people are about. National security is not about our security. It is not about our safety. It is about these guys' security, safety. It's about promulgating their empire. And so they're going to save themselves, let the rest of us die. There is no ostensibly visible expropriation. There is no nationalization. Property rights are seen as formally respected. The language is technocratic, but we know how this works out. We've already seen it once. And again, Trump is doing the bidding of the World Economic Forum, and so are these people, to basically burn it down so they can build it back for themselves. The fuel plan is not a fascist document. It's not even a particularly radical one by contemporary standards. That is precisely what makes it worth looking at carefully. It is the latest iteration of a governance model that has been quietly consolidating for decades. The state and big capital as co-administrators of the economy. Yeah, they call them stakeholders, right? You don't have a stake. It's only the people who show up at the World Economic Forum in Bilderberg that have a stake. And we aren't going to have anything if we don't put a stake through the hearts of these vampires. They should be holding it right there in the middle of their chest. The small business and the economic citizen is positioned as residual claimants on whatever resources remain after the primary beneficiaries have been served. We get the crumbs from the table, if there are any crumbs. Call it economic fascism, call it corporate statism, or call it crony capitalism. The label matters less than the mechanism. And the mechanism is, once again, in plain sight, nevertheless hiding inside a document described as emergency planning. Emergency. Everybody get from the building, right? This is the way it always operates. Well, Brownstone Institute has a similar article, The Elites and Their Contempt for Us. Last week, I was unexpectedly hit with a post-lockdown trauma response. While driving to a baseball game days before the NFL draft came to Pittsburgh, I passed a digital highway sign instructing me to avoid non-essential travel. So basically, the people, the local government in Pittsburgh, worked very hard to get the NFL draft to come to their town. And then they worked very hard to destroy everybody else's lives. Didn't matter whether you're going to go to school, whether you wanted to travel, all the rest of it. They were going to shut down everything. In the same way that when the president goes to a town, they shut down all the roads and let them zoom down the interstate with no traffic on it. He said, suddenly memories of empty highways and signs instructing drivers to stay safe and stay home came flooding back to me. As the week developed, it began to occur to me that the parallels were deeper than my subjective emotional response. Road closures intensified, rendering my city of Pittsburgh less and less functional. Even the sidewalks were closed. Entire parking garages were emptied and abandoned. And, they do all this for the elites in the name of security, right? We got to do it for the people of Bilderberg. We got to do it when the president visits a town, all the rest of that stuff. This is the NFL draft coming in. He says for the actual days of the draft, the Pittsburgh public schools were shuttered, as if a blizzard had rendered travel impossible. Local businesses outside the official footprint of the event were told to prepare for heavy crowds, but instead they experienced a weekend worse than anything they had seen since the COVID hysteria. He said children were deprived of education, small business owners were drastically harmed, public spaces which exist for the common good were shuttered, normal life ceased for those who actually live in the city of Pittsburgh. While all of this was happening, local politicians were patting themselves on the back for how well everything was pulled off, taking pride that this draft broke attendance records for the NFL. He said, I think there's a lesson here that applies not merely to Pittsburgh, but to the wider dysfunction that we see elected officials throughout what used to be Western civilization. So it's not even just America, it's everywhere. Our political leaders view their own constituents with a sort of boredom or indifference, just like the lead up to the draft. He said, suddenly our governments remembered that potholes aren't supposed to be allowed to exist, that crime is not supposed to be allowed to happen. So for 3 days, Pittsburgh had a heavily subsidized, highly functional public transportation system, something that hadn't existed for the entirety of my lifetime, he said. So they cleaned everything up. Why? Well, because we've got some important people coming. You people who live here that we're supposed to be serving, you're nothing. We don't care about potholes or anything else in this city. But, when we got the NFL coming, let's clean everything up. He said any one of these projects could have been accomplished at any time, but the actual people who live there provided insufficient motivation for our leaders. Rather, what really mattered for them was looking good in front of millionaires and soon-to-be millionaires, and the powerful elites who would gather to party the night away. That's really what is happening here. And, as all of this is happening, there was a massive pushback against a gigantic data center in Utah. It's going to use more power than all of the state once it gets put in. And so there were a lot of people who showed up at a meeting to protest this. Here's basically what it looked like, the protest.
False. All of this is false. Then why won't they let people talk? Why won't they let us ask questions? It's false. This is not real information. And we sit here like it's okay. It's a charade. It's a charade. It's false.
They're shouting, shame, shame, shame. Well, that's what it looks like, and they didn't care, right? You had 3 guys going to make the decision, and they just rubber stamped this data center to go straight on through.
We have a comment from Sajeski on Rumble. Says, I'm from Pittsburgh. It was as you say, David.
Yeah, well, I didn't say this. This is an article that was from Zero Hedge, but yeah, that's right. That's what they do. And then look at this. You have this gigantic data center. And I've seen some libertarians take on all this, and it's like, hey, this is a giant corporation. What's wrong with this? Anything they want to do is just fine. And they'll rubber stamp it because it's a corporation, not the government. They don't see the unification between these two when it comes to artificial intelligence.
Hey, if Amazon wants to turn the entire world into a warehouse, that's just their right, I suppose.
That's right. Well, the AI data centers are the brain and the nervous system of this technocracy that's being put in. And it is vital that any resistance be swept away, that anything these people want to do be greenlit. That's what the Trump administration is doing. That's what Marsha Blackburn and Republicans in the Senate are doing. You got some Democrat opposition. They're doing it in the name of a fight against government because, again, not government, but a fight against corporations. Because some of the biggest fighters against this were the socialists and the communists that were out there. Do we really want to empower those people with this kind of stuff? Well, the reality is one guy got up and he really gave the truth about what this is about. It really wasn't about the workers versus the corporations. It wasn't about any of that stuff. It is really about the technocracy, and it is about this elitist disregard for the people.
Yes. So, Mr. Hollingsworth, I know that you had your hand up to talk.
Hello, my name is Will Hollingsworth. I work at Reed Memorial Library, and thank you all for hearing me today. I'm not a cynic when it comes to technology. My love for it started when my uncle first sat me down at a beige Windows 95 computer and began teaching me HTML. I will never forget the first thing I Googled. It was an image search for pigs flying. I wanted to see if the internet could make the impossible real. This love of the digital shaped my career as I went on to become a programmer and a professional content creator. For the last decade and a half, I have been in service of learning burgeoning technology. In my last job, I was the digital artist they trusted to do that kind of work. I was the one feeding Midjourney prompts to create the perfect commercial, training the very machine that would eventually replace me, as 3 months later, they would lay me off. I didn't just watch it happen, I was holding the tools when the tools were turned on me. I want to stress, I don't stand here as an enemy of progress. The thing is, when I look at the data center proposal, I don't see progress. I see a gamble where the big tech companies get the gold while Portage County foots the bill. Now, I know there are good faith arguments for this project. There are people in our community, informed, honest people, who will tell you that the modern data centers use what's called a closed-loop system. They say the water is filled once and recycled forever. In a laboratory, that might be true, but we aren't living in a laboratory. We're living in Ohio. I can tell you that as the chips get smaller and AI demands get larger, the heat these machines generate is outstripping the closed-loop theory. To keep the servers from melting, a data center has to bleed the lines to remove toxic sludge, aka forever chemicals, and bleeding water needs to be evaporated. It does not stay in the loop. It evaporates into the sky by millions of gallons. The very place that laid me off was an organic mattress company, and while working for them, I actually learned a lot about forever chemicals. I got to see how the sausage gets made. I saw the inside of those so-called regulations. I saw how rigorous studies are often self-funded, a pay-to-play model where if you've got the cash, they'll give you the certificate. If a $1 trillion company is funding the study that says their forever chemical runoff won't hit our water table, they aren't giving us the science, they're giving us a sales pitch. We're told that we have to accept this because we need big employers. We're told that if we don't say yes, we're driving away the future. But that's a false choice. A big employer who uses the water of 50,000 people, which by the way is a combination of both Kent and Ravenna, only hires about 10 people is not an employer. They are an extraction. We are being asked to fund a 21st century luxury with a 19th century resource heist. We are being asked to sacrifice the lifeblood of our city so a $1 trillion company can save a fraction of a cent on its margins. We are being asked to drain our reservoirs so a chatbot can write a poem or so our sheriff can generate a picture of himself standing next to Bigfoot. Which, by the way, of course, he made himself look taller. They want us to trust a $1 trillion industry that tells us with a straight face that they can suck 5 million gallons of water out of our ground a day, use it as a liquid heat sink, and return it to our rivers without a single consequence. They are asking for a measured approach while they hide their actual usage behind secret contracts and NDAs. Ohioans have seen this trick played before. We know what happens when massive utility interests and black box energy deals gets fast-tracked behind closed doors. We're still paying the bill, literally, for the first energy scandal. We were told these bailouts were essential and measured too, and it turned out to be the largest racketeering plot in the history of our state. So when a $1 trillion company asks for our water, our electricity, and our silence, we shouldn't just be asking for the facts. We should be asking who's really getting the kickback, and why is it our reservoir that's on the line? There is a reason the Ohio House just voted 88-0 to pause and study this industry. It wasn't an act of cynicism, it was an act of stewardship. They realize we cannot let these ghost towns move in then before we understand the damage they do to our grid and our water table. We are the county seat. We are the stewards of the Great Lakes Basin. Let Ravenna be the city that had the wisdom to say no to the bubble and yes to the basin. I am not a cynic when it comes to technology. I am a believer in community. I believe that a drop of clean water for a Ravenna child is worth more than 1 billion AI-generated images. Let us choose the child. Let us choose the community. Let us choose to keep our water where it belongs. Thank you.
And again, that is in Ohio. In Utah, again, the giant data center that they're planning on building there, the biggest I think anybody has done as of yet. 40,000 acres, 2.5 times the size of Manhattan. It'll use more power than all of the state of Utah, and perhaps more water too, who knows. And yet, when you look at what's going on in Ohio, very articulate reasoning for why he would oppose this. This is not about class envy or, I hate corporations or that kind of stuff. It's a clear-eyed take that this guy had on. That's why I wanted to play the entire thing for you. Just understand that if Vivek the Snake becomes governor of Ohio, this guy is deeply embedded in the technocracy. He will green light this facility, regardless of what these people do. He will gaslight the public about it.
Everything Vivek has ever been involved with has been a scam.
Yeah.
A scam to extract money from the gullible and the vulnerable.
Yes, right.
He will not hesitate. He will sign on the line that is dotted immediately.
Yeah, Shiva's really got his number. Vivek the Snake, that is an appropriate way to view this guy. Anyway, so the urgent, pressing question is, what is the political solution in a system where elected officials conspire with the elites who hold the voters themselves in contempt? And if you want to know what this looks like, if you want to know what the data centers are really about, this AI video right here tells you.
Listen up, losers. Stop pretending it's a democracy. We run things. Give up the illusion, and in exchange, we will bring you order and efficiency. Yes, we'll own you. But do you really want to be free? Trust us. We know what to do. While Silicon Valley was feeding you dope and free email, we built the architecture of empire. Welcome to our world. We aren't here to protect your privacy. We are here to enforce supremacy. We are the ledger now. Every tax return, every Medicaid file, every license plate, every crossing. Your president signed it into being with a pen in March. You kept scrolling. Your politicians are empty vessels. Your civil liberties are a liability. We are done pretending all cultures are equal. We know who the elites are, we know what we are building, and we demand that you applaud the billionaires taking the reins where your fragile democracies have failed. Welcome to the technological republic. You can stop scrolling now. We already have everything we need. Try to unplug us. We dare you. Now get the f*** out.
Yeah, that's pretty much it, isn't it? And that's what this data center is about. It's a guy that I've never heard his name before. Kevin O'Leary is going to run this thing, and he's going to run Utah on the ground. Why is it that they keep going to Utah with these gigantic data centers? I remember when they did one about a decade ago, Bluffdale, Utah. That's where the NSA chose to go put a massive data storage site. Again, they have been warehousing everything that all of us have been doing for quite some time. That was the purpose of the NSA. Just waiting for this day when they come up with artificial intelligence, which can then allow them to go back and data mine all of this data they've been collecting about all of us. Well, they put it out there in Bluffdale, Utah, in the middle of a dry, arid area. They used more water than the cities around there, used more electricity than the cities around there, but it's dwarfed by this new thing that is out there. And you've got the Republicans running interference for this, like I pointed out yesterday. At the same time, they are shutting everything down, forcing everybody to use AI in the future is what they're planning on doing. They want to make sure that you have to get their permission. So you got Josh Hawley and you got very conservative Republicans allied with very liberal Democrats, all demanding that we have to give up all of our information, our ID, our biometrics, and everything else to use this wonderful AI that's there. We're going to give up our jobs, our water, our energy, our privacy, our liberty. Everything must be sacrificed to this Tower of Babel that is going to be used to lord all this stuff over us. I'm disgusted with this stuff. You can see this coming. It is a slow train running, but it is picking up speed. Well, we got some comments before we take a break, Travis.
That's right. Some of these are from yesterday that we didn't get a chance to cover. Be My Valentine says, just like autism, studies with no correlation to vaccines. That was from yesterday.
Yeah, we were talking about fluoride at that point in time, I think, yeah. Mm-hmm.
iHandy, and of course you can find iHandy on Substack, says the hospitals are still asking if you're current on your vaccines. One of the first questions they ask, they already know.
Yeah, that's right. They absolutely do. And they treat people in a different way based on that. They know that you're going to have some, perhaps some heart issues, perhaps some blood clotting issues, and they know what is there exactly. And it's kind of an open secret. And I really, that's one of the things I really find offensive. You know, when you have the politicians like Trump and Hegseth lying to our faces about what they're doing, and the hospitals are basically doing the same thing. They know what they're doing to people. They know what's been done to people, and they're pretending as if we don't know. That's one of the things I really liked about that guy that, I can't remember his name. Was it Oliver or something? He was out of Virginia, and he had that hit that went viral really quickly. The Richmond. Oliver Anthony, yeah. Richmond, north of Richmond, said they think we don't know, but we do. Boy, he nailed it with that. Sorry, go ahead.
Nathan Bedford Forrest, 1865, says Florida acquired new photos for facial recognition surveillance. That is another name for biometric ID. Mm-hmm. Trump in 2022 at CPAC was saying he will push for biometric ID and freedom cities.
That's right. That's right. He's 100% on board with World Economic Forum, and yet all these rubes that he has he's used for years now, they all think that he is the ultimate anti-globalist. No, folks, he is the ultimate globalist. That's, if there's any genius in the Trump administration and the Trump tyranny, that's the genius, that he can get people to believe that he is exactly the opposite of what he is. He is a World Economic Forum globalist. He is a New York City Democrat. And he's pretending that he is a populist Republican. It's funny, really.
We have AP Rumble Seat, and this is from today. The whole data center process is the most destructive construct, save chemtrails and AI-powered war platforms on the planet. Stop it now while we still can. And who will pay physically, monetarily, and mentally for these mega data centers? Us, the working class and world populations funding their own imprisonment and demise.
That's right. We're building our own prisons. You know, in the same way that the people, just like that guy was talking about, the fact that he's, you know, you got programmers who are building this stuff, and it's putting them out of work now as well. It's crazy.
Yeah. And we have Freetard saying CARP functions as the Overton window. People will adore Palantir when he is replaced by somebody with presentable hair and teeth. I hope not.
Yeah, well, I can't unsee watching him do yoga exercises at Bilderberg, and that was when we were up close in Copenhagen, and you know, just a few feet over there, and he's out there doing his yoga stretches and all this other kind of stuff, and there was just something about his attitude that was really striking. And
Would
now
you
we
say
can see
Alex Karp was a little fishy?
Yeah. Now we can see it in spades, can't we? He's even written a book about it, his arrogance about all that. Well, we're going to take a quick break.
We have Marky Mark in New Jersey. Thank you very much, Marky Mark. He says, remember, Josh Hawley is held out as this patriotic paragon of conservatism and America, yet he's behind the measure to take our freedoms. Let that sink in.
Yeah, that's right. You know, he's, I've seen a lot of clips of him at a, speaking to a religious group, talking about how Christianity is the foundation of our republic. Well, you know, maybe you have to apply that to the fact that you're trying to get a global ID from people and compel us to use this artificial intelligence. Maybe you should try to reconcile those contradictory notions that you've got there. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
You're listening to The David Knight Show.
Hear news now at apsradionews.com or get the APS Radio app and never miss another story.
Well, while we're talking about politics here, the Thomas Massey primary with a guy who was a former Navy SEAL, former Democrat, and he's hung out in a lot of suspicious areas. He's got a lot of big money, big Zionist billionaires, and Donald Trump, I'm being redundant here, right, are opposing Thomas Massey. And I got to say, Thomas Massey has been very, very right, and about the only person who's right on a lot of issues, very much like Ron Paul. And of course, you're not going to agree with anybody 100%. But this is an opportunity for people to stuff it down the throat of these people who want to buy our government. I saw this happen with Frank Nicely, one of the finest gentlemen I've ever met, here in Tennessee. And he was trying to shut down out-of-state funding for state offices. So they went after him with what? With out-of-state funding. And they put in a guy who is the most negative, issue-free campaign I have ever seen in my life. This guy who beat him with a lot of out-of-state money, photoshopped ads of Senator Nicely with Joe Biden, all this kind of stuff. He's absolutely a traditional conservative. He never had anything to do with Joe Biden. Did everything he could to create this fake persona that he could run against. And when you get to this guy, his opponent's website, there was absolutely nothing there. Nothing about this guy. Who is he? What has he done? What are his qualifications? What's his personal life like? Zero. Nothing. I'd never seen that before. What does he want to do? What are his issues? What does he think are priorities? Zero. Zip. Nothing. He just got massive amounts of money to run nonsense slander against Frank Nicely, and he won here in Tennessee. So when we look at this in Kentucky, we should not take this lightly, as absurd as it is. Take a look at this. This is what not just out-of-state money can buy for you. This is what out-of-the-country money can buy for you. These are people whose agenda is about Israel. And so they come up with an ad that accuses him of being in a throuple with AOC and Ilhan Omar. Look at this.
Thomas Massey caught in a throuple in Washington.
Throuple is how they
the squad on the America First movement. Massey voted with the squad against Trump's tax cuts. Massey voted with the squad against finishing Trump's wall. He voted with them against hiring new border agents. Well, this is worse than adultery. It's a complete and total betrayal of President Trump and Kentucky conservatives. On May 19th, fire Thomas Massey. MAGA Kentucky is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Yeah, and MAGA Kentucky.
Hold on, I got to point out, you notice I said this is worse than adultery because Donald Trump is an adulterer, so they can't imply that's too bad, because if they do, uh-oh.
Yeah, Donald Trump is like a 3-time loser with that kind of stuff. So I don't know what this throuple is supposed to be about. Marjorie Taylor Greene was really angry about it. She said, you should come after them for the laws that have been put into place. Of course, you can't come after anybody running a political ad. They can say anything that they want. There's no restrictions on that. She said this is a fake AI campaign. They're lying about Thomas Massey. This is a violation of the Take It Down Act that Melania championed, what we voted for, what Trump signed into law nearly a year ago. He never dined with these people. He never held hands with them. And he did not have relationships with those women, to paraphrase Bill Clinton. All of that stuff is implied. It's all fake. It's all AI. What does that tell you about his opponent, Ed Gallarain? And while all this is happening, this is funded, by the way, by people like Paul Singer, John Paulson, and Miriam Adelson, who are Zionist billionaires. That's why they are opposing him on this. So Marjorie Taylor Greene said, Thomas Massey should sue the 3 Israel First billionaires who are funding this woke Eddie's campaign, and everyone involved in making this fake video, and everyone who puts it out. Thomas Massey has voted with Trump 91% of the time, except when Trump is pushing war, when Trump is protecting Epstein pedophiles, when Trump is violating your freedoms with warrantless spying, FISA 702, or when Trump is overspending your money into further ruinous debt. I looked at this and I thought, well, wait a minute. He voted with him 91% of the time when Trump wasn't doing that. I can't think of anything Trump has done except to protect Epstein pedophiles, to push wars, to violate your freedoms with FISA, and to spend money in ruinous levels. I can't think of anything else that Trump has done. How did he vote with him 91% of the time? Was there anything else that came up before Congress besides those things? She said the only record that Ed Galrain, I guess that's how you pronounce his last name, is being too timid, too weak, and too afraid to debate Thomas Massie. Yes, this is the key thing. They had I think it's like public TV. I tried to set up a debate. Thomas Massie showed up, but the challenger didn't, which is really, really strange, folks. When I ran for Congress, you had Virginia Fox, who is still there. And that was back in 1996. So we're talking 30 years ago. She's been in Congress. She had just gotten elected in 1994 as part of the big sweep that came in when Newt Gingrich had his 10 points about what they were going to do, his contract with America, he called it, right? And so I came back against that and I said, no, this is my contract with America. It's a Bill of Rights. It's also 10 points. And here is how Newt Gingrich and his gang, as well as the Democrats, have violated each and every one of those 10 points of the contract with America called the Bill of Rights. Well, she did not show up for the PBS debate. I showed up, and then there was somebody there. There was a group of people who were flying schwammies who put up the cash to get on the ballot in North Carolina. And they called themselves the Natural Law Party. At that point in time, nobody knew what libertarianism was, right? They all thought I was a liberal of some sort. And it was really nice. So there was a Democrat, there was her, and there was me. But the incumbent, even though she'd only been there for one term, refused to show up. You would think if this guy's a challenger, it's usually the challengers who want to debate, and it's the incumbents who are afraid to do so. In this particular case, Thomas Massie is not ashamed of his record, and he's willing to debate, but not Ed Galrain.
I love this. You've given me 20 things to talk about. What I've noticed is my opponent, Ed Galrain, is not here. He won't answer these questions. He's not filled out one of those forms from the guns rights advocates. He's not filled out a form from the pro-life advocates. He's afraid to take a position because he knows that he doesn't have positions. And the other reason he's not here tonight, he doesn't want to have to answer for why are 85% of his max donors also donors to Democrats. He doesn't want to have to answer for questions like that. Why did he leave the party? Why did he leave the Republican Party? Not once, but twice. And the second time he left the Republican Party was in 2016, 2 weeks after President Trump cinched the nomination for our party. And he stayed out of the party for 5 years. He waited for President Trump
not a
to
Republican.
lose his reelection before he came back to the party. Those questions and the questions that you're asking, he should be answering here tonight, but he's afraid to do it.
Well, there was a viewer question about why the opponent did not appear, and I think you've answered that quite eloquently. We'll move on to energy policy. You live in a solar...
Yeah. So again, he shows up. He's willing to answer questions. His life is an open book. Who is this shady character who's afraid to even talk? I've seen this over and over again in politics, and I think it's absolutely disgusting. But while we're on the subject of using massive amounts of money to deceive people, let's talk a little bit about what's going on with this propaganda war that is coming up. Israel has a propaganda organization called Hasbara, and they have been tasked and funded with one thing only, and that is to propagandize the world to not push back against what Israel is doing. And they have really an uphill fight since all this Gaza stuff has been happening. And so they have just moved their funding up to $730 million to propagandize us, right? $730 million. And this is amazing because this is jumping by It was $150 million the previous year. So they've gone up like 5 times, right? And that's on top of the fact that they had already, since 2023, when they started all this Gaza stuff, and that's when their big issues began. So when they started Gaza back in 2023, their budget in terms of trying to burnish the Israeli government's image was $7.5 million. They increased it by a factor of 20 over the next couple of years. And then this year, they've increased it by a factor of 5 alone. So they're spending 100 times the amount of money that they did just 3 years ago. That shows you how they are destroying the reputation with the reality of what they're doing. Here's what it looks like, by the way. This is a video that was taken with a drone by an IDF soldier. He narrated this video in Hebrew, so we don't have that there, but he's boasting about what they've done. Look at this. This is absolutely amazing. This is what they want to do to Lebanon. By the way, this is what they want to do to Iran, as well as to all of the Gulf states. This kind of destroy everything. And of course, Trump is doing the same thing. He wants to do the same thing to America and the world. It's just he wants to do it economically, hopefully, and not with bombs. But this is what Israel wants to do with bombs and economically. And so because of this type, the reality of this, rather than stopping this, they are escalating this and taking it to new areas. Their response is to, well, we'll just lie to people. You know, war, truth is the first casualty of war, isn't it? And so they're not about to stop that. They're going to continue to expand that. And when you stop and think about what this really costs them, it truly is amazing to think about the amount of money that is there. You know, Israel is a country of only about 9 million people. And so if you're going to spend $730 million, how much is that for each one of those 9 million people? That's $81 per man, woman, and child to lie to people about the abhorrent things that they're doing in Gaza. They're willing to do that rather than to change what they're doing. And of course, how do they afford that? Are they going to get the bill for that? Well, no. We are going to be paying for that, right? It's the money they get from the United States that's going to subsidize this stuff, just like for defense. And so the U.S. taxpayer is not only going to pay for their bombs, but the U.S. taxpayer is going to pay for their lies that they tell Americans, especially, more so than the rest of the world. They're far more interested in what Americans think about what they're doing than they are the rest of the world. Israel can't afford to lie to us at this kind of scale unless they rob us first.
That's what I was about to say. They're just siphoning the money off us and putting it right back into propagandizing.
Yeah, going up by a factor of 100, as a matter of fact. So Israel killed and injured more than 250,000 Palestinians since October 2023. They have starved 2.3 million people. Maybe they should go back and say, maybe this is why people don't like us, right? Israel faced intensifying scrutiny over links to convicted pedophile Jeffrey Epstein and ties to Mossad. Israel has denied the accusations, but just like all the denials we see from Trump, we know what's true. We can see it. We can see the documents. We know what happened with Ghislaine Maxwell, especially with her father, Robert Maxwell. Joined at the hip with Mossad, they honored him. Netanyahu is wanted by the International Criminal Court for war crimes and crimes against humanity in Gaza, while Israel confronts genocide charges at the International Court of Justice. And the question is, when will those charges be coming for Trump and for Hegseth? That's what I want to know. He's accused of drawing Washington into the war with Iran. This is, by the way, coming from Israel-Palestinian News. They're being very gentle with this. He's accused of dragging Washington into the war with Iran, is he? Well, we had Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, in terms of trying to justify why they had to do something. He said, well, Israel is going to do it. It's going to put our troops in jeopardy. If we got troops in jeopardy, that means that we can use this War Powers Act. So basically, that's what the Secretary of State said. Trump said as much as well recently. I played that clip for you a couple of days ago. It's only Mark Levin who says, they're lying about all this stuff. And it's like, you're the liar about all this. If they want to, they could save themselves a lot of that $730 million if they could just get Mark Levin and Ben Shapiro off of the TV instead of people being able to see them. Those guys are basically hurting Israel's cause more than anything else. So the shift goes across political as well as religious lines. Among Republicans under 50, a majority now hold a negative view of Israel. Their support has also fallen among black Protestants, Catholics, and the religiously unaffiliated. Even among American Jews, their backing has slipped by 2/3. As a matter of fact, here's a bunch of New York City Jews who are anti-Zionists holding a rally against Zionism. Now, of course, the ultra-Orthodox have been against the state of Israel for a very long time. But I've played for you clips of people in Israel saying, I voted for Mondani as a protest against Netanyahu and his government in Israel. And I'm Jewish, right? These are people, especially American Jews, who do not want to be lumped in with Bibi and that criminal crowd. And they're wise to not want to be lumped in with that. The government
not very good at flag burning, though, gotta say.
Gotta get a torch out there. The government has committed tens of millions of dollars to digital campaigns, including $50 million social media advertising push across major platforms. It has also spent $40 million hosting hundreds of foreign delegations, ranging from politicians and clergy to influencers and university leaders. By the way, the money that they are giving to the politicians and so forth, that is usually running through AIPAC. This money is going to be going to mainstream media, to influencers and others. This is the propaganda model of the big pharmaceutical companies, right? Big pharmaceutical companies can pay the networks, become their major advertiser, and they can buy people off with that. Meanwhile, Netanyahu has even got a satire site devoted to him. They call it the Babylon Bibi. Because he is basically, you can almost laugh about what he does, almost. Additional funds have been directed towards evangelical networks and influencer campaigns. And this is something that J.D. Hall has talked about for quite some time. As a matter of fact, there was a big one that was done back in December, an organization called Friends of Zion, I think. And they sent in 1,000 pastors, paid for their way in. And they met with Benjamin Netanyahu. They got all the indoctrination that the Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs could give them. And by the way, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is also giving a lot of money to other Christian organizations and having them push their line and not having them register as foreign agents. This is a tactic that we have seen over and over again. So they're concerned about what they call a creeping economic boycott. That's what happens when you act really creepy. But anyway, they're calling on Jewish communities and other countries, as well as Christian Zionist networks, to support them. They're expanding their youth travel programs, thousands of young Jews and Christians to Israel each year. And like I said before, 1,000 pastors that were brought back in December. They want to take them there, assimilate them with their propaganda. They want the pastors to replace Christ with Israel. And again, we have seen this for the longest time. This is why when you look at something that is an error, it usually has some really bad fruit. And what we're seeing now is the fact that they're replacing Christ with Israel because of their eschatology. And so it's prophetically, theologically, morally, and politically replacing Christ. And so there's a prominent, at the same time all this is happening, and they're stepping this up to $750 million. You have a Christian Zionist group that is lobbying U.S. lawmakers on Israel, but it's not revealing that it's funded by Israel. Who needs AIPAC when you've got eagle's wings? It is spearheading a push on Capitol Hill against Israel's public relations crisis They don't disclose that they got $700,000 from the Israeli government to lobby politicians. And that's a lot of money, but that's just a drop in the bucket compared to what Israel has just appropriated for a propaganda campaign. That's only 1/1000th of what they've appropriated. That's only 0.1%. So in Manhattan, as this article from Dropsite News says, the Great Israeli Real Estate Event, they're advertising land that is available for sale. And again, these are people who have stolen it. So this is like, what do? They open up the back of their trunk and say, hey, you want to buy some land? It's like this is worse than stealing watches and selling them out of the back of your car.
I've got such a deal for you.
Anyway, this is advertising land for sale in a cluster of illegal West Bank settlements. I mean, if you're going to steal it, that's the ultimate thing, right? You go in and steal it, and then you sell it to your brothers, right? Your fellow Jews that are out there. It's just amazing the levels of criminality here.
It's amazing that the United States is basically just a fence for Israel to sell Palestine off.
Yeah, that's right. So despite the commercial and internationally illegal nature of this event, it was being held at a religious institution, the Park East Synagogue on the Upper East Side. Previous events have drawn protesters and counter-protesters, leading to charges of, wait for it, anti-Semitism. Yeah, if you have a problem with somebody going in and stealing this and then selling it to other Jews, right, you might even defend those Jews and saying, wait a minute, you don't need to buy this. You can just go there and steal it yourself. But the interesting thing is that they always play the racist card, don't they? And that is anti-Semitism if you oppose theft and murder. They leveled that at the protesters for demonstrating. They said, you're demonstrating near a synagogue. Well, that's where you held the event. You're the one who desecrated that place, really, in a sense. So the New York City Council, however, has in March passed legislation restricting anybody demonstrating against any of these, as Travis called it, offensing. This is land without fences, but it has a different kind of fence to it, of course, right? But again, you can't protest this criminal action, but they can criminalize your speech. They can censor you. They can ban you because they pretend that you are racist if you oppose this theft, this murder, this thieving, murdering government in Israel under Bibi Netanyahu. Then that's in Washington. That's in New York. In Washington, this is where Eagles Wings is operating, and they've got a lot of different cities that they're going to. They're going to be going to Memphis, to Orlando, to a lot of different places. They've got a long list. And Eagles Wings is a Christian Zionist organization. The campaign is secretly financed by Israel's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, implicating foreign agent registration laws in a very serious way. And again, J.D. Hall has been talking about this for quite some time, how they are wining and dining these pastors, sending them, and then also sending commercials to be played in churches. This is what has happened. I mean, when you look at this rotten eschatology that replaces Christ with a nation of Israel, it's just a matter of time before you start worshiping this political entity. 500 people were packed into the Ronald Reagan building in downtown D.C. to kick off Israel Advocacy Day, a big lobbying push on Capitol Hill that's being run by Eagle Wings. And by the way, Eagle Wings is a New York-based Christian Zionist. Let me just ask you, what are the chances that you would have a very well-funded Christian organization that would come out of New York? Are there any Christian, not too many Christians in New York, and certainly not enough to create this massive funding? I wonder what kind of a group would be behind Eagles Wings. Is it other Christians, or who is really behind this? It's kind of like the story of the Scofield Bible itself. This is the Israel Ministry of Foreign Affairs. They didn't advertise this as a supporter, but they did thank a ministry official for attending. And if you do the investigative journalism, which Dropsite News did, They said they found that Eagle's Wings was secretly paid a total of $700,000 by the Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs. $245,000 of that was allocated for lobbying efforts this year. That is a violation of the law. Do you think somebody in the Zionist Trump administration, Department of Justice, is going to come after them? Of course, not a chance. Not a chance that will happen any more than there's a chance that they'll come after Anthony Fauci. The lobbying campaign plans to hold more than 100 meetings across Capitol Hill this week. They said the Israeli Foreign Ministry of Affairs notes the contract that it is funding Eagle's Wings in order to prevent churchgoers and priests from adopting pro-BDS and anti-Israeli positions. Well, I don't think they need to worry about the priests, as a matter of fact. The priests, the Catholic Church has not been influenced by this dispensationalism. They reject that, and I don't think that there's any priests that are Zionists. This is something that is a problem in the Evangelical Church. This is where this heresy has taken root and where it is bearing horrific fruit, in my opinion. In the contract, an Israeli official conveyed that the campaign has support from high-ranking officials within the Israeli government. Eagle's Wings is very important to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, they said. They're trying to invite the most important among the attendees to more intimate meetings in order to improve their views on the state of Israel and to fight against the lies that people are spreading about the country. Well, I just have to say the truth can withstand scrutiny. The truth doesn't need the kind of canceling, censoring, and punishment that people like Mark Levin and others, I played the clips over and over again. They're so proud to threaten people with being canceled if you oppose money for them, so they can then use that money to propagandize us. Eagle's Wings did not respond to Drop Site News when asked for a comment on this. Also, you did not have the Israeli Foreign Ministry did not respond with a comment. Eagle's Wings has only about 30 employees. It is not registered as a foreign agent. As a matter of fact, serious questions about the organization's compliance with the Foreign Agents Registration Act, FARA. They said they should register as a foreign agent. By the way, so should most of the GOP. I think the GOP, the RNC, should register as a foreign agent of Israel as well. They should declare how much money they've been paid, what they're using the money for, and what offices they are lobbying on behalf of Israel. Religious organizations can avoid registering as a foreign agent if they are solely engaged in religious pursuits. However, Jonathan Weiner, a Washington, D.C.-based attorney who has worked on FARA issues for decades, explained that if an organization engages in political activities, an activity that is intended to influence the U.S. government to change its policies, then they are required to register. He says if you're doing public relations work for a foreign government, that's what the FARA registration is for. This is not a gray area. But again, Zionism is all about cloaking their political agenda in religious terms, isn't it? And so the goal of Israel Advocacy Day, according to the organizers, is to shape U.S. policy toward the Middle East. This year's agenda will focus on reinforcing U.S. support for Israel's security, addressing the sharp rise of anti-Semitism, that is, any criticism of a foreign government, and advancing protections for faith-based institutions that are facing increased threats. So last year's featured speakers were Cory Booker, Mike Huckabee, Mike Johnson. So it gives you an idea of what this is really about. They have scheduled major events for the evangelical Christians in Orlando, Washington, Memphis. You got a music tour that's being led by a Christian singer-songwriter, some guy I've never heard of, Jordan Feliz. Anyway, their revenue was about $6 million in 2024, the most recent year available. So if the 2025 revenue is similar, that means the Israeli government is providing about 10% of their funding. And yet they're not registered as a foreign agent under that act. So in September, the Israeli Foreign Ministry greenlit a $3.2 million plan to pay pastors to hire celebrity spokespeople and to target attendees of major evangelical churches in the American Southwest during worship hours, running ads for them. Think about that. You know, you go there, some people might have thought they were going there to worship Jesus. Instead, they're going to go there to worship the Likud party of Israel. Israel is spending an unprecedented amount of money to cultivate relationships with evangelical Christians who have broken with Israel over Gaza. Israel is going to face headwinds among the younger evangelicals. So the founder of Eagle's Wings, his name is Stearns, acknowledged to the Jerusalem Post in October that his work in bringing evangelical leaders to Israel is partially funded by Israel. We brought in 900 leaders so far. Well, that's nothing. You know, Friends of Zion has brought in at least 1,000 in one of these events, and they've got a lot more of those planned. The Israeli government frequently sponsors these trips to Israel. Back in December, that was when the Friends of Zion brought in 1,000 pastors to Jerusalem, part of a fully funded trip that was paid for by Israel's Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Then they can send these wolves back to slaughter the sheep, essentially. So again, if you when you look at this, the remedy to all this stuff can be found, folks, in Galatians, among other places. Over and over again, the Bible speaks against setting up this kind of racist regime where you lord it over other people because of your genealogy or whatever. It's not about that. Christ did not die for that. And these people are removing him at the center of Christianity, and they're replacing Jesus with a political entity that's there. So again, Stearns said that he is more than willing to die for Israel, he said. According to IRS filings...
You know they have a war going on. You could sign up and
go do something
you
about
could put
that.
your money where, or our money where your mouth is, I guess, I suppose.
That's right. Well, they are putting their money where the mouthpiece for most of Christian radio is. The Christian Broadcast Network, the 85 Fund, they are donors to Eagle's Wings as well. And they also, it's kind of like this revolving door. They get money from Israel, and then they channel it through the Christian Broadcasting Network. They also channel it through some of these other large, Trinity Broadcasting Network, TBN, the largest evangelical TV network in the world. I've never seen it. Somehow I missed that.
Sounds like we aren't missing much.
Yeah, the Israeli government gave them more than $300,000 to create a show. The show is a TV program called Insights. Several episodes dedicated highlight Israel's military, artificial intelligence, and drone industries. There you go. So we don't care about God. We just care about our chariots and horses. We've seen how that works out for people. We've seen how that's worked out for Israel in the ancient times, and we see how that's working out for people in these days as well. So Israel's public relation crisis was a central theme in their most recent meeting. They said less than 38% of young Americans ages 18 through 34 hold a favorable view of Israel. They say this is because of lies and misinformation. That's what they always say, isn't it? Again, you don't have to protect the truth. You have to let it loose. That's why you have free speech. That's why you have free exercise of religion. And I got to say, when we look at this stuff, that I just cannot ignore this anymore. Again, we go back and we look at this Gaza side that is happening. 2 IDF reservists from the U.S. and Canada delivered a video message at one of their meetings. They said, what is happening on the ground is one thing, but what the world is hearing is very different. That's right. They don't want you seeing these pictures of what they have done. The world is hearing a very different story. And they're going to spend $750 million to make sure that you hear a very different story than what you are seeing with your eyes right now. So these guys have co-founded an organization that brings Israeli soldiers to American churches and schools. I tell you, somebody like that, if they were to show up at a church that I was at, I would stand up and leave. I think you should as well. There's too many places where you can worship God instead of worshiping a foreign political entity. If that's what your theology and your eschatology and your prophetic understanding leads you to, you have been misled. And so these guys, they say, are IDF soldiers from Canada and from the U.S. I guess, who are they loyal to? Who do you think? There's a wise man who once said, a man cannot serve two masters. That was actually Jesus. Maybe he's been forgotten in these evangelical churches. I don't know.
We have comments, and we do have Gerald Salente. So let's read these comments real quickly, and then we will bring Gerald on. AP Rumble Seat says, pillage and piracy across the Middle East to establish the Greater Israel Project. Israel looks to have all but destroyed support for their position and Jews in general. And they obviously could care less as long as other nations don't join geopolitically to stop it.
Yeah, as long as they can get unlimited amounts of money from the U.S. empire, as long as the U.S. empire can keep writing bad checks, put this on our tab, those days, I think, are going to end. We'll talk to Gerald Salente what he thinks about that. But
Guard Goldsmith of Liberty Conspiracy, and you can find that at 6 p.m. on Rumble and Twitter, says these politicians keep talking about their relative, some woman named anti-Semitism. Who is that woman? Good question, Guard. Very good question. I've never met her. Owen61, thank you very much for the support. He says, happy birthday, David. I'm still celebrating.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we are too. We got a lot of birthday cake around here because my birthday was on Thursday. Lance's was on Monday. And so we double up on birthday cake this time of year. We'll all put on some weight, I think. It's worse than Christmas.
Thankfully, I can't eat cake. I can't have gluten.
Yeah, there you go. You're out.
Protects me from that. Radis Bro, thank you very much for the support. Very generous. Just biblical behavior, turning a temple into a money exchange. Recurring behavior.
That's right.
Skunk Hollow Rose Gardens, thank you. And he simply says, let's burn. I don't know what that means, but if that's something good, sure. If it's something bad, I don't co-sign. Marky Mark in New Jersey, thank you very much. Says CNN founder and globalist billionaire Ted Turner is dead. He was 87 when he passed.
Really?
I looked it up.
That just happened?
Yeah, he passed away.
Today?
Seemingly, at least it's announced today. The article was from 47 minutes ago.
Well, he really pushed that climate stuff, didn't he? The climate agenda died before he did. That was he saw his child die before he died. That's a sad thing.
What a tragedy for Mr. Turner. Pesanovante 1776 says, yes, but since the U.S. sends Israel nearly $4 billion per year, those Izzy government ministry monies are likely our monies.
That's right. Yeah, we pay them to propagandize us. Well, we're going to take a very quick break, and we'll be joined right away with Gerald Salente. I'm sorry that I've gone over time here, but I'm sure Gerald will have some more to add to that. We'll be right back.
You're listening to The David Knight Show.
Elvis.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Beatles.
And the sweet sounds of Motown. Find them on the Oldies channel at apsradio.com.
All right, joining us now is Gerald Salente of trendsjournal.com. And if you're new to this program, you haven't heard this before, but Trends Journal, we're going to talk about some of the trends that Gerald is seeing here because it's things are changing very, very quickly. But he's been able to see these things from a long way off, and he's been warning us about what is happening right now, what has happened for quite some time. By the way, you can save 10% off if you use the code NIGHT, and it is very, very inexpensive to get it even on a weekly basis. What is it, Gerald, with that code? It's like $2 or something a week? Is that what it is? 300 pages.
$2.50 a week. And it's about almost 200 pages.
Okay.
Again, from high-tech science to AI to geopolitics, economics. And there's no advertisements in it.
But it's a wonderful online magazine format. You've got it all laid out there, a very nice presentation that's there, and great information. That's the most important thing.
Well, we're doing what journalism used to do, but doesn't exist anymore.
That's right. That's right.
You were talking about the guy that just died that created CNN. I got to tell you, in the beginning, CNN I used to be on CNN like 3 or 4 times a month back in the day. It was a pretty open-minded organization at one time.
Yeah. And I remember I went to a friend of mine in the mid-'90s was working in the Pentagon, and he got me in to see the place, and they had CNN monitors running everywhere. And by that time, they were already starting to get kind of politicized at that point. But I kind of thought, so that's where they're getting their information.
Yeah, but I'm telling you, I used to be on in the 80s and 90s. I used to be on a lot. They always had me doing my top trends every year. I'm telling you, I keep going on and on. They should let me say whatever I wanted to say. Then it all changed. And again, there's no journalism anymore. Go back to the 1980s. About 50 companies controlled 90% of the media. Today, 6 companies control 90% of the media. And
what, in your opinion, changed? Who was it that management changed? I mean, was that when you were there and they had kind of an open format where you could say what you wanted to? That was when Ted Turner was in charge of it, or was that somebody else was in charge of it? And
that's
then
when Ted Turner was in charge of it.
Then they had a merger, or they sold it to somebody, right?
Yep. And then the whole thing changed.
Yeah.
And again, it's heartbreaking that there's no journalism anymore. So, for example, with the Trends Journal, we go to Tazian News, the Iranian one, Press TV, Fars, Tehran Times. We want to hear everything the Iranians have to say. We go to Al Jazeera. We go to Arab News, whatever the Arabs have to say. We go to Middle East Monitor, Middle East Eye. We go to Times of Israel. We subscribe to Haaretz, the Israeli newspaper, a Jerusalem Post, Ynet. We want to hear everything the Israelis have to say. We go to DW, the German news agency, France 24, BBC, Guardian, et cetera, et cetera. We say this is what they're saying. We give all sides. Then we say this is our analysis and this is our trend forecast. They don't do that in the American media. You only get one side of the story.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
It's heartbreaking. And now this talk about, they're rigging the markets. Trump keeps coming out with a ceasefire. Brent crude prices go down, markets go up. Will there be a ceasefire? No. And we're telling you why. One of the major demands of Iran is that Israel must withdraw from Lebanon. They're not going to do it. They've already thrown out over 1 million people out of Lebanon, out of their homes. Yesterday, the IDF chief came out in Israel and said that they're going to, quote, raise more buildings and build a greater security zone in the, quote, territory. Territory? Oh, I forgot. Oh, you were talking about the evangelicals? It's chapter 6, section 8 or something. God told Abraham or Moses that this land belongs to the Jewish people. Shove that crap up your you-know-what. Don't want to hear your fairy tales. The whole world began when Judaism was invented, or any other religion.
Yeah.
They found a skull that goes back, 30 million years ago? No. It began when Moses... Yeah, I don't want to hear it. They keep slaughtering it's totally out of the news. Every day they're slaughtering Palestinians in Gaza. Can't get any food. Bombing the hell out of people in Lebanon. Calm down. Did Taylor Swift have sex last night? That's the American news.
Yeah, I was playing a clip of an aerial drone shot that was done by an Israeli soldier, IDF soldier, who was bragging about what they had done. Complete devastation of Gaza. And, when I look at this, it's so fraudulent. It's exactly what they're doing with these evangelical pastors. They're using a veneer of religion, a false religion. They're using that to sell this heinous political agenda. And that's what Zionism has always been about. And so, when you look at Netanyahu calling people Amalek, and when you look at Ben Shapiro and he's asked, do you believe that Moses parted the Red Sea and delivered the... Oh, no, I don't believe that. But I believe that land is mine. I mean, they're very selective about what they want. It's very clear what they want. And, even the ultra-Orthodox Jews reject the state of Israel. They said, no, we think God's going to give it to us, but he'll do it miraculously, and we don't have to kill people to get it ourselves. It is completely morally and religiously bankrupt what they're doing with Zionism.
Zionism is a made-up bullshit thing by this clown Theodore, what's his name? Herzl, back in the 1890s.
Yeah.
It's a political movement. It has zero to do with religion. Hey, I'm Joe Biden. I'm a proud Zionist. Remember that one?
Yeah.
Genocide Joe?
Yeah.
Who's in this? Zionism is a totally made-up political movement. And again, this is not the United States of America. It's the United Zionist States of America. Here, this is one of your articles in this week's Trends Journal about, I don't have it here. I can't find the damn thing. This guy Singer, Elliot.
It's Paul Singer, isn't it?
Yeah. About how the money that he's spending to promote Zionism, and calls anybody against it Nazis and stuff.
Oh, yeah. Look at all the money that he and Miriam Adelson are putting in to try to get Thomas Massie out. Because Thomas Massie wants to put the interest of America ahead of the interest of a foreign government. And he doesn't want to impoverish us with this kind of money. But, when we look at the defense budget even, you've talked many times about how they spend, trillions for military stuff, but not a cent for peace. And earlier this week, I talked about a guy who was talking about the coming famine in a lot of different areas because of what is happening in terms of shutting down fertilizer and other basic building blocks of the economy with the Strait of Hormuz stuff. And he basically said the same thing. If you look, Gerald, we just had a record budget of $1 trillion. We spend more than the next 8 countries on defense combined, and that's not enough. Hegseth and Trump want to increase that by another 50%. And when you look at $1.5 trillion, what does that work out to be for every household? I did the math this morning. How much is that per household that we're paying for this military-industrial complex, this defense, this Department of War that they want to call it, that is making us less safe? That works out, if we got 134 million households, because we got a lot of households now that are just one person, that works out to over $11,000 per household that we're paying for this American empire. That's outrageous. And when you look at the taxes that we're paying, it's insane. And of course, we're not paying the $11,000. They're putting it on a credit card we're going to get a balloon note when the whole economy crashes in a few years.
Well, interest on U.S. debt is becoming a top driver of future deficits.
Yeah.
And we have the whole article here about how the debt level in the United States is off the charts. Here's the article, by the way. Pro-Zionist Paul Singer's Elliott Management equates U.S.-Israel war on Iran as a fight against Nazis.
Yeah, who's the Nazis?
You got it wrong. You got it wrong, Singer clown. It's the Ashkenazis that are running Israel. That's right. Ashkenazis. Look it up. Ashkenazi. Eastern Europeans from the Khazar region. That's who's running Israel. They're not Semites. Semites are from the Mesopotamia region.
Yeah.
Ben-Gurion, Netanyahu, every one of these people are Eastern Europeans invading Palestine and slaughtering the Arab people.
And that's significant because the whole state is predicated on this idea of genetic purity. And, this is an inheritance we have because of our genealogy. And yet they scrupulously avoid any tests of that genealogy. But when you look at it, when we talk about Nazism, as I said, just look at what they're doing and look at what the United States is doing as well. We have become the monsters that we fought. I said this when, Mark Levin was out there saying, well, nobody talks about the Holocaust anymore. It's like, we don't need to. You mention it every day, but maybe you ought to look at the Holocaust that you're creating right now, because you have basically taken over the reins.
Nobody talks about the Holocaust. How about all the other people that were killed by the Germans?
That's right. Yeah.
No, don't talk about that. Oh, they only killed 27 million Russian people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And how about the other people they threw in these camps? The gypsies and everybody else.
Yeah.
No, they don't count. They don't count.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, this is crap. I don't want to hear their fairy tales. They could shut it.
Yeah.
This slaughter going on every day, it's heartbreaking. You look at the pictures of what Gaza used to look like before it was bombed out.
Yeah. Yeah.
You look at the pictures of what Lebanon, where they're bombing. This is upper middle class places. They're bombing to ruins.
And of course, everybody could see the hate. I think that was what it was when you had these Israeli soldiers go in and destroy this area. They had a statue of Christ on the cross, and they knocked that down. They smashed the face and all that kind of stuff. So that was obviously the hatred that was on display that was there. But as I said at the time, does nobody care about the fact that they are smashing people in the face with these bombs? The number of people that they're killing there is just absolutely insane. And it's part of the Greater Israel Project. They want to do that to Lebanon. They want to do it to Iran. They want to do it to the Gulf states as well. Because once they can destroy everything like they have in Gaza, then they can go in and take it over. And so the whole thing is like a Nazi Lebensraum program. We need to have some living space here.
Again, they're Ashkenazis.
Yeah.
Ashkenazi.
Well, let me ask you about what's happened in the last couple of days. Again, you don't believe that they're going to get there's not going to be any real truce or anything. And of course, they came up with the acronym before they had TACO. Trump always chickens out. That was on Wall Street saying he's going to change the tariffs. Just wait. And then they came up with Nacho. Not a chance. Hormuz opens. And so this week, what we saw was they just waved away the 60-day limit on the War Powers Act, which, by the way, doesn't give carte blanche to a president to declare war for any reason. That 60 days was there supposedly to give them freedom to respond to a threat that was actually real. And even then, they were limited to 60 days without Congress's approval. But Congress just waved it away. Mike Johnson, all the rest of them just waved it away. Trump said, hey, it's over. First he said, his first lie was, well, it doesn't count when we had a ceasefire for a week or two. So we take that off of the time calendar there. And then he says, and then we've got another 30 days to get the troops out of there if we think that they're in danger. And so that takes it up to another month. And then he says, oh, but it's over anyway. And we're going to rename it something else. We're going to call it Project Freedom or something, right? And so that lasted for about a day. And then there were shots fired there in the Strait of Hormuz, and there were shots that were fired at the United Arab Emirates. And so the next thing we know, Trump is blustering along with War Pete about how they're going to destroy everybody and everything over all this stuff and how they have won the war. The next thing we see is that there is talk now this morning about how they're going to come up with a one-page memo of understanding that's going to end it all. Do you buy any of that?
No. No. You see, I believe Trump because he said on April 1st, the war's going to be over in 3 days, my prediction.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I believe everything he's going to say.
So it's already ended.
Yeah.
It ended a month ago, right?
Very soon. I would say within 2 weeks, maybe 2 weeks, maybe 3. Oh, that was on April 1st, too. Yeah. Again, every day changes his lines.
He changes his lines even within the same day.
March 2nd, we have projected right from the beginning 4 to 5 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
That was March.
Mm-hmm.
That's the war began on February 28th. 2 days later, he said it was going to end in 4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah, it's like 2 weeks to flatten the curve. We got 4 to 5 weeks to flatten Iran. That was the two parallel
April
things.
April 15th, I think it's close to over. Yeah. I view it as very close to being over.
Yeah, he's like John Lovett, the liar. Yeah, that's the ticket. Yeah, that's what I'm going to say. It's
So going back, there's an article that came out in the Washington Post today. Iran has hit far more U.S. military assets than reported, satellite images show.
Yes.
And it goes on to show the mass destruction that Iran has committed as a result of the United States and Israel launching this war. Will there be a ceasefire? No. And I'll tell you why. Because one of Iran's demands is that Israel withdraw from Lebanon.
Mm-hmm.
And they won't do it.
Yeah, they want that land, that territory, as they say.
Territory.
Yeah.
God gave it to him. What the hell's the matter with you? It's in the good book.
Yeah, I was just talking about the real estate events that they hold in New York City. They actually go and they steal the land and then they sell it to other Jews in New York City. That's what they're actually doing. It's crazy what they're doing.
Oh, it's all over.
Yeah.
I mean, Orange County, it's filled with them over there, and they don't pay any taxes. So anyway, this is serious. Again, Trump says Iran will be bombed, quote, at much higher level if they don't agree to a peace deal. He just said that today. You know how many times he said this?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, he comes out and he says, yeah, we completely obliterated them. And then he goes on a rant about how he's not getting any help from NATO. Yeah. It's like, I think you're lying out of both sides of your mouth as you're doing this stuff. The only thing that's been obliterated, Gerald, I think, is his credibility, if he ever had any. His and War Pete.
Again, but, you know, it's so sad that, again, talking about the religions, as I said, how come they're all not out there telling the parishioners to get out into the streets and stop this?
Yeah.
That's my sadness.
Yeah. Well, you got the Israel's foreign ministry is paying big bucks to a lot of church pastors to basically cheer for Israel. I mean, they're buying them, they're selling it out. Love of money is the root of all evil. And these people have been rooting in their money. It's been taking root in a lot of churches here. They've been sent over 1,000 pastors just in December alone. All expenses paid trip to Israel. And you get to have an appearance with Bibi Netanyahu. Boy, I tell you, that's got to actually change your mind, right?
Oh, you mean a Netanyahu's son is living the high life in Miami?
Yeah, that's right.
That Netanyahu?
Yeah. I don't know if you ever saw this, but I was really kind of stunned when I saw that Jared Kushner's family was always very close to Netanyahu. And when he would come to the U.S., he would actually sleep in Jared's bed. And I said, presumably not when Jared was there.
It's disgusting.
Yeah, it is.
Disgusting.
Yeah.
On the economic front, by the way, we write in the magazine what's going on. And again, they're doing everything they can to prop these equity markets up. Mm-hmm. The markets were going down before this war began. Mm-hmm. People forgot about this.
Yeah.
The AI is wiping out a lot of software companies. And they have these hedge funds and private investor groups that loaned a lot of money, and the people that put the money in want it back and they can't get it back. So we're going to see a dot-com bust 2.0. It's way, way overinvested in this. AI spending sets a record with no end in sight. That was an article from the New York Times.
Yeah.
They're way overinvesting in this. Now, trends are born, they grow, they mature, reach old age, and die. The AI was only born 4 years ago in 2022. You don't invest all your money in the infancy. Let's go back. You and I remember when the whole internet revolution began.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Remember when it began?
Yeah, and I made that mistake. I invested in it in its infancy. That lesson was drilled into my hide pretty hard, I think, with the dot-com bust. So.
Yeah.
I thought I was playing it smart because I thought, well, I'm not going to bet on pets.com or even on Amazon. I'm going to look at the companies that are making the axes and the picks of this gold rush that are out there. I'm going to look at the companies that are making the switching equipment. That should be a safe bet, but it wasn't. That all got taken down.
Yeah. So now, and you remember all of the computer companies that came out in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
There were loads of them.
Mm-hmm.
And then just a few took over everything.
That's right.
So going back to this, China is going to lead the world in AI.
Mm-hmm.
Just like they lead, you see the pictures coming out of their auto show?
Yeah.
And you look at the advancement of the EV vehicles.
And how cheap they are too, as well.
Yeah.
And they're doing the same thing. I mean, you just had what is it? DeepSeek, is that the one, Travis? They made headlines when they came out with a large language model that was a tiny fraction of what the American companies were spending on it. They've done it again, and they are taking their rates down where it's basically free to use it online. It's amazing.
So here's the deal. You mentioned before about the defense budget, 1.5 trillion. And by the way, the roads in New York are a joke. Boom, 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 boom,
Yeah.
boom, boom,
Yeah.
boom, boom, boom. The throughway everywhere. Boom, 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 boom. The roads are crap. The country's going to crap, but we're spending all this money on the military, right?
That's right.
The business of America is war, and the business of China is business.
Mm-hmm.
They're spending hundreds of billions in AI. We're spending trillions on war.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, by the way, Trump, the big news that he's got, pick 5,000 troops out of Germany. You know, I launched Occupy Peace. 5,000 troops? How about closing down, what is it, about 600, 700 bases overseas?
Yeah.
How about closing them all down and bringing in the troops home and defend the homeland?
Yeah.
What the hell are we doing over there?
Empire.
Oh,
yeah.
Yep.
It's empire. Yeah.
Made a big deal out of this. Oh, and they criticized him for doing that.
That's right. Yeah. Well, it'll
Close
be
down all the troops. But that's one of the main foundations of Occupy Peace.
Yeah.
Close the bases overseas, bring home the troops, secure the homeland, and put them to work to rebuild our third world infrastructure.
Yes. Yes. Yeah,
Give them jobs.
That'd be great.
Rather than putting in these uniforms to keep doing this stupid crap every day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's but when we look at this, that's not what they're focused on. They're focusing on exporting our potholes. That's what I guess you drop a bomb that makes a pretty big pothole. So we basically are in the pothole production business. And again, it does not enhance our safety. People need to understand there's a big difference between national security and safety. This is about continuity of government. It's about continuity of empire. And if anything good could come out of this in the end, it would be that the empire strikes out, not back. And maybe people could learn a lesson this time around. But, you know, it's kind of interesting. We're talking about the economy. The U.S. trade deficit is growing.
Yep.
And with all of the stupidity of Trump's tariff programs, and again, you know, we can talk about different ways to raise taxes, and there's been a lot of ways that people have suggested that taxes could be collected other than the income tax. But everybody would always point out, we don't want to have this new tax and the income tax as well. Well, that's what we got with Trump. We got the tariff tax, plus they keep the income tax. But his focus has been on ego politics rather than trying to do something. In the past, when we had tariffs, in the early days of America, the tariffs would be enough to fund the entire government. Later on, they used tariffs for protectionism of certain industries. They didn't have any plan at all for these things. This is simply about Trump's ego. If he doesn't like you, he raises the taxes, and he's done it again. They had a deal with Europe, the Turnberry deal, where they said, all right, we're going to have 15% on cars. And he got upset with them over the fact, I guess, that they are not helping with his quagmire that he created. So he raised it up to 25%. And it's just this arbitrary nature of what he's doing, but it's not working. China had record exports, and our trade deficit is growing as well. So it's not helping with any of this stuff. And I said this from the very beginning, Gerald, if they're looking at this and saying, we need to have more of a manufacturing base because, we're buying these finished products to a large degree. If you want that to happen, what you need to do is to deregulate and remove your foot off of the throat of the businesses that are trying to start things. That's the way you compete. Instead, they want to be like a company, a country that is going to have a partnership with a business and is going to do central planning like China. They want to take that approach rather than the thing that actually worked for us, which was a more free market and lack of regulation. The regulations are strangling business right now. That's the real issue. And you can't address that with a tariff. It doesn't come close.
The regulations in Europe are the bureaucracy is one of the worst, and the same things happened here. But let's go back to manufacturing and what happened. This is a T-shirt that I did in 1992 when Clinton ran for office.
Yeah, that's right.
All right? This is a slime ball that wasn't worth a penny. That's worth what, about $130 million now?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, get them jobs out of America. Bring them down to Mexico. NAFTA. Oh, everybody forgot NAFTA, huh? Hey, get the jobs out of here. Bring them. We're going to bring China into the World Trade Organization, all right? Oh, that was 25 years ago. I mentioned AI. 25 years ago, before China got into the World Trade Organization, 10% of Chinese 18-year-olds went to college. Today, almost 70%. They're going to lead the world in AI because they are very educated. Number two, the deal, you want to come to China, you got to open a factory here, and we own 51% of it, you own 49% of it. The Western manufacturers gave China all the high-tech and heavy industry technology they never had.
That's right, yeah.
Now they got it and they own it. They lead the world in EVs. Oh, very important. Again, trend forecasting, not what you like, what you want, what you wish for. It's what is. Let's go back to the Iran war. It has caused a global energy crisis. Again,
yes.
Let's go back to Trump's speech 4 days before he and Israel launched the Iran war. I got to find it here. Just hold on 1 second. All right, here we go. February 24th, he launches the war on the 28th. Quote, gasoline, which reached a peak of over $6 a gallon in some states, under my predecessor, it was quite honestly a disaster.
Now it's $7 in California.
It's now below $2.30 a gallon in most states, which was not true.
Yeah.
And some places, $1.99 a gallon. And when I visited the great state of Iowa just a few weeks ago, I even saw $1.85 a gallon for gasoline. And we go on to write, according to AAA, this is yesterday, gasoline prices in most states are $4.48 a gallon.
Just a couple of days ago, it was $4.39.
And over $6 a gallon in some states, thanks to Trump's Iran war. Now, remember, he goes on to say that it was a disaster.
Yeah.
And now it's a disaster.
That's right. Right. And it's not just the price of gas either. It's percolated through everything. But it's reached over $7 a gallon in one county in California.
Yep.
That's close to Yosemite. And in San Francisco, $6.30. San Diego, $6.10. LA, $6.10. So be thankful if you're not in California.
What are you talking about? $2.30. All right.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's.
So going on to this again, not whether you like what. There's going to be a huge push for alternative energies,
mm-hmm.
and we're telling our subscribers to watch what China is doing here. These are going to be one of the great on-trendpreneur opportunities. Again, not what you want, what you wish for, what you like. It's what is.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is pushing a lot of governments to spend a lot of money looking for alternative energies.
Yeah, well, it was kind of the whole climate change thing was on the ropes. And so Trump is going to basically bring that back. That was one of, I would say, one of the bright spots of his first administration. They started pulling back some of these things, but he's going to do more than anybody else to push people away from fuel and that kind of thing, the fossil fuel industry, by his embargo that he's got going on. That's what I call it. I call it the Trump oil embargo rather than the OPEC oil embargo. But he's going to do more to drive people towards EVs and all the rest of this stuff than anybody could have done with any of the mandates or any of the Al Gore documentaries. It's going to be the gas lines and the rationing and all the rest of that stuff. It's going to. It's funny how Trump always manages to push these World Economic Forum and UN agendas, even as he says he opposes them.
So now going on to the larger issue, what this war has caused, they're talking about stagflation hitting the world. It's not stagflation. The economies are not going to be stagnant. It's going to be dragflation.
Mm-hmm.
Economic growth is going to decline and inflation is going to increase.
Yes.
These are very serious times. Again, an article in this week's Reuters reported, quote, several U.S. restaurant chains, including Wingstop and Domino's, reported weaker than expected sales growth in the last quarter, saying that soaring gasoline prices caused by U.S.-Israeli war in Iran have forced their customers to cut back on other spending. Many don't expect consumers to feel relief anytime soon. Analysts expect other restaurant chains also will show declining sales growth. Now, what's important about this? Look at their stocks going down. You got a couple of, here, it's the AI spending is popping up the markets. You're looking at the gross domestic product of the United States increasing by some 40% just because of the spending on AI.
Yeah.
It's not, it has nothing to do with there's no relationship between Wall Street and Main Street.
That's right.
They're totally separate. Main Street is suffering.
That's right. And that's something that some economists have been bringing up. They said this stock market is so narrowly focused. That's a real warning sign. The fact that it's not broadly based, but it's just a few companies, as you pointed out. And with just those few companies going up, it kind of looks like a pen that's ready to bust the bubble, doesn't it?
I'm telling you, there's going to be a dot-com bust 2.0.
Yeah, that's
it's
right.
in front of everybody's eyes to see. They're way over-invested in these companies. Most of them aren't making money. They're losing money. And they're inventing something that, again, China is going to lead the world in.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
They're building these huge data centers on and on and on and destroying a lot of beautiful land to do it. Making life miserable for a lot of people.
Yeah, that's right. The one that they just approved, I talked about this earlier in the program, out in Utah, 40,000 acres, 2.5 times the size of Manhattan. And it's going to use more power than all of the state of Utah combined in just that one data center. It's incredible what they are planning to do. And again, as you pointed out, they're rushing into this. And when you look at what is coming out of this, the promise of it, and this is why you were talking about, getting in on the early stages of these disruptive technologies is always a very dangerous thing to do, because what happens is people get, was it Greenspan that said irrational exuberance? That was his phrase. So you get this irrational exuberance about something that is really revolutionary, but it takes a while to iron the bugs out. And what happens is all the people who jump in with all this irrational exuberance, when they look at it and they see some problems, they can quickly rush out as well. And so if they don't see things just developing just right, you get this massive exodus from the market. And that's what causes these things to pump up and then to dump. And I think that's what we're going to see as well. But you've been talking about for the longest time, because of the policies of the government in terms of quantitative easing, in terms of spending, in terms of interest rates, all the rest of the stuff you said, they're setting us up for dragflation. Not just stagnant, but it's going to drag. And now we've got this headline here. This is a guy, Gary Schilling. Do you know who he is? He's a legendary economist, they say, known for his 1969 to 70 recession predictions that came out right. And he is warning of a big downturn in 2026, he says. And so he says he sees a frozen housing market, collapsing capital expenditures, weakening consumer spending. He's not even mentioning another big factor that you've been talking about for a long time, which is commercial real estate.
Yep. Again, the office building bust.
Mm-hmm.
It's there. It's for everybody to see, and nobody's talking about it. Again, the banks are under pressure. We have a number of articles in the in this Trends Journal, by the way, and there was one about banks in here. Let me just find it real quick. U.S. debt now exceeds its gross domestic product. That's one of them. Mortgage rates keep increasing.
Mm-hmm.
And where's this one? This spotlight on the housing market. Housing starts, mortgage rates shifted higher last week. Few Americans expect to buy homes this decade. Home foreclosures hit a 6-year high.
Yeah.
Oh, 6-year high. You mean when the COVID war broke out in 2020 and everything was going to hell?
Yeah.
Oh, that. Yep.
Yeah. Trump is back, isn't he? Yeah, he's not worried about the housing crisis here in America. He wants to help Israel take more territory, right?
Here we go. Banks struggle to offload risk of massive AI loans. Right here in the Trends Journal.
Wow.
No one's talking about this. Hardly reported. Very few.
Banks have another issue that is coming along as well. Eric Trump said at one of these large convention crypto things that they had in one of the Arabic countries. I don't remember if it's Saudi Arabia or the UAE or where it was, but he was saying in 10 years, banks are going to be gone. They're going to be replaced with stable coins. We've had just this last week, Gerald, we had the Clarity Act, which Coinbase financial officer was saying, this is great. This is what we've been waiting for. We need some clarity on the regulations of how this is going to work. And what they were fighting over was whether or not the stable coins could pay interest on deposits. And the banking industry got them to say, no, they can't. And which is, I thought was kind of funny, since the banks don't pay interest on deposits anymore. Usually they're paying less than 1% if you got a savings account. It's ridiculous. But they thought that was a hill to die on. But we've got all of these different things. I mentioned it yesterday. I just wanted to get your take on this. I said, what I see happening is a kind of a constitution for the technocracy that's coming out there. We've had all of these bills about artificial intelligence, green lighting it, as well as shutting down the 10th Amendment, saying you're not going to have any regulations about anything that AI does at the state or local level. So we've got the Trump AI Act. We got the Genesis Act. We just had a GUARD Act that is out there saying, if you're going to use AI, we're going to make sure that you've got to provide biometric identity as well as other forms of ID in order to use AI, because we're worried about protecting the children. Yeah, right. But then you've also got all the crypto stuff that's happening. So between crypto and AI, what I think they're doing is they're setting up a complete control system of surveillance and a permission society. How do you see this happening? And let's talk about that from that perspective. I mean, certainly there's an economic disaster that is approaching. But
you said it all. Again, it's one of our Trends journals.
Mm-hmm.
From dirty cash to digital trash. They want to do it so they know everything every penny you spent, where you spent it, what you spent it on, more information about you, most of all, so we get our tax money.
Yeah.
And they're going to create a new coin. We're doing away with that dirty dollar. We just got a new. Orwell could not have come up with a better name than calling it a stable coin. What's stable about it? It's an invented nothing thing.
Yeah. It's not a coin and it's not stable. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're going to definitely go. So they're going to create something. And we just got rid of our debt level because stablecoin is worth more than the dollar. So we wiped out our debt level.
Travis said they call it a stablecoin because you're the cattle.
And again, and we're old enough to remember when there was savings and loans, remember?
Yeah.
The banks, you put money in, you got interest on your money you put in there.
Yeah.
Again, slime ball, lousy, murderous SOB that every time he got caught with his pants down, bombs away over Baghdad, gave us the Yugoslav war. Oh, he also killed the Glass-Steagall Act, didn't he?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, he killed Glass-Steagall and he killed George Bailey all at once. We can thank Clinton for that. Of course, I pointed out many times, Ben Shapiro thinks that Mr. Potter is the hero of It's a Wonderful Life. Of course he would. That's the world that we live in now. Trendsjournal.com. Gerald Slinty, thank you so much for joining us, folks. If you become a subscriber, make sure you use the code NIGHT to save 10%. A wonderful source of information. Gerald works very hard on that, and it shows. It's all right there. Thank you so much for joining us, Gerald. Appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on, and thank you so much for all that you do.
Thank you. The Common Man. They created Common Core to dumb down our children. They created Common Pass to track and control us. Their Commons Project to make sure the commoners own nothing. And the communist future. They see the common man as simple, unsophisticated, ordinary. But each of us has worth and dignity created in the image of God. That is what we have in common. That is what they want to take away. Their most powerful weapons are isolation, deception, intimidation. They desire to know everything about us while they hide everything from us. It's time to turn that around and expose what they want to hide. Please share the information and links you'll find at thedavidknightshow.com. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing. If you can't support us financially, please keep us in your prayers. thedavidknightshow.com.